Reminder, present to Tech Buying Committee tomorrow.
This looks interesting.
Your data center should be driving better business outcomes.
Exactly.
Find the right people, the right way.
Hello, marketers. My name is Maisha Slay, and I'm a product marketer here at LinkedIn. And today, I'll be your moderator today for today's LinkedIn Marketing Labs. I'm joined by two incredible marketing experts, and I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves in just a second. Today's class is all about targeting. Our goal for this class is for you to have the ability to learn more about our targeting tools here on our platform. But before we get into the main event, let's take care of a couple of housekeeping items, just to make sure that we have a great webinar. First, the tool we're going to use today is Slido. With Slido, you'll be able to ask questions by entering them in the box to the right-hand side. You'll be able to have the options to ask certain questions anonymously, and throughout the course, I'll be taking questions from this particular box. We'll also be doing poll questions as well, and get prepared because our first poll is coming up. On the left-hand side, you'll see our resources. Here you'll have the agenda for today, and shortly after this presentation, we'll be sending out an email of the webinar and the presentation as well. And lastly, feedback is a gift. So at the end of this webinar, there will be a survey that goes out. Please give us your honest feedback about how we can make improvements along the way. And with that, I'll kick it over to Amanda and Julia so that they can introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Julia Destin. I'm an account executive with LinkedIn Marketing Solutions. I specialize in new business, so I love to help people get started and strategize on how they can use the LinkedIn platform.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Amanda Green, and I'm a Client Solutions Manager here at LinkedIn, and I work on the technology vertical specifically. Excited to be here with you guys today.
Thank you, Amanda and Julia. Let's go ahead and get started with our presentation. So, our first poll question, what city are you joining us from? Again, use the Slido to the right-hand side, and we'll take them as they come in. All right, so we have a lot of folks from Chicago, from San Francisco, Chicago. Where else do we have folks coming in from? Toronto, I see, Houston. Oh, we got some really good folks here. New York, Chicago, Madison, Cleveland, Ohio. Give folks a couple more seconds here. So definitely have representation all around the world right now. We have the Netherlands, Milwaukee. This is great. Folks joining us at the very end of the day and at the very beginning. So thanks for your participation. So let's go over our agenda for today. So first, we're going to talk a little bit more about LinkedIn, our environment, and our platform. We're going to go into how LinkedIn targeting works. We'll talk a little bit about our audience attributes and what goes into the makeup of our targeting tools. We're going to touch on matched audiences, one of our biggest targeting tools available. And then we're going to talk about our, then we'll go into a demo actually. And then we'll provide tips at the very end how to optimize your targeting strategy. So with that, let's talk about LinkedIn and our environment. LinkedIn is one of the most trusted social media platforms among the world. And we like to provide transparency and control for our advertisers. People trust what comes from LinkedIn because it comes from our members' authentic personal identity. So with that, LinkedIn's vision and goal is actually to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. And in order to create economic opportunity, we have to provide the ability to allow businesses to grow. And so with that, a lot of professionals come to our platform in order to build up their professional expertise and showcase the work that they are doing. And with that, we have over 645 million professionals represented globally here on LinkedIn. That includes decision makers, C-suite level executives, and influencers. So for the past 3 years, LinkedIn has been voted as the most trusted platform, social media platform across the board. This was a headline from a major study from Digital Trust and the Business Insider Intelligence folks. So LinkedIn is most trusted for privacy and data and keeping that safe for our members. And we're the least likely to show deceptive content and to have misplaced ads. So the context in which your ads show up makes all the difference on our platform. At LinkedIn, we try to create a high quality environment, not only for our members, but for our customers such as yourself. Context truly matters, and where your ads place them can be interpreted. LinkedIn members engage with our platform to further their career goals. So they come to LinkedIn specifically to connect with people, brands, opportunities, and engage with high quality content that address their desire to become more productive and successful. There's a different mindset when folks come to LinkedIn versus other social media platforms. And it's that aspirational mindset that has led to the explosion of content on our LinkedIn feed. So because of that intent, we like to provide an environment for our members and for our advertisers that allow folks to have brand safety and to continue to trust our platform to provide that data that we use and need. So now that you know a little bit more about our platform, let's talk a little bit more about how you can reach the members that matter to you on our ad platform. So just to level set, on LinkedIn, you have two advertising options. The first one is by sponsoring a post that you put on your company page. So this is primarily for your organic audience and folks followers of your particular company page. And with a sponsored ad post, you'll be able to promote and be able to follow additional folks to your particular company page or post. So that's the first option. The second option is to have a direct sponsored content. This gives you, as a marketer, more options to share content on the LinkedIn's homepage. You can personalize this message, test variations of the content, and control the content and how it shows up on your LinkedIn page or within the feed as well. Direct sponsored content can be seen by members on their homepage and looks the same as a sponsored post. But they won't be visible on your LinkedIn company page or on your showcase page. And this also won't be sent to any of your followers. So really think about your options and the goals of what you're trying to do if you want to do a sponsored post based on something that you've already created versus creating a direct sponsored content post. So now that you know a little bit more about our LinkedIn platform, including our advertising options, I'm going to kick it over to learn more about how LinkedIn targeting actually works.
Thank you, Maisha. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the ins and outs of how LinkedIn targeting works. We'll start by using this example of Jeff Weiner, who happens to be the CEO here at LinkedIn. So our audience targeting is driven by data that is included on a member's profile. So for those of you out there who have built your LinkedIn profile, this should all sound familiar. So the first thing we take, of course, is the member specified location, their job title, the company they work for, the school they've attended, this particular field of study, their graduation year. And we also use engagement data like groups that members are a part of or companies that they're actually following. So when we think about the two different ways to target on LinkedIn, so inherently you take the targeting based on member profile data and audience attributes. So those are going to be the company names, the job titles, where they're located, those specific demographics provided on a LinkedIn profile. And then there's another way that we can actually target by targeting members that you or your company already knows. We'll dive in a little bit more to what that means and what that looks like later on in the presentation. So let's start off with an example. Let's meet Joe. Joe is a software engineer. He's a director of enterprise business at a business in France. So if we think about the different ways we could target a member like Joe, we can go from like a niche targeting perspective. So let's say, for example, we were targeting people specifically with the director level seniority that work specifically in an IT job function. If we look at that particular audience based in France, that helps us reach about 23,000 members on LinkedIn. But if we think about it more from a robust perspective, or if we think, how can we take that ideal target and expand it, we can also target different seniority levels. So we can target senior level plus, and for those of you who don't know, senior level typically means individual contributor and above. We can also target multiple job functions, so whether they're in IT, engineering, program and project management, operations, and that expands our target audience to 720,000 members. So one thing I would say is huge on LinkedIn is make sure that your audiences have enough scale. As sort of like a rule of thumb, we typically recommend 50,000 members as a minimum. So 50,000 and above is what you want to aim for. So if you see as you're building your audience that it's a little bit smaller, you want to think about ways on how you can expand that, but still keeping in mind that you want to reach the right members and not open those floodgates too wide. And then the graph on the right just kind of shows how we can use a combination of different audience attributes to make sure we're reaching the right people. So if we think about job titles, skills, job functions, or your first party data, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well. The other option you have as far as targeting, you can also target based on a member's profile language. Simply put, we recommend if you're targeting, for example, the English language, we want to just make sure that your ads are also written in English as well. And so that's actually an option you have when you first create your campaign. And then for members' location. So location is actually the one targeting attribute that's absolutely required when you're creating a LinkedIn marketing campaign. So we take this location based off of the location on their profile as well as their IP address. So you can actually target by like a specific continent or region. You can dial it down by a specific country. You can even get as specific as like specific cities, states, or DMAs. An insider tip that we'd like to give is that if you do have targeting that is, let's say, more of a global focus, we do recommend separating those audiences by region. Because if you think about how our ad platform works, if you were targeting the entire world, for example, everyone in the earlier time zones may use up all of that advertising budget, and then the people in later time zones won't get an opportunity to see or click on your ads. So separating regionally is always ideal if you're going for global targets. And now, oh, yes.
Before we get into audience attributes, we have one question that came up during your chat. So one is there a minimum target audience size?
Great question. So the minimum target audience size that our platform will allow is actually 300 members. But again, we use that 50,000 as a minimum rule of thumb.
So much.
Cool.
And with that, we're going to make the switch over to Julia to speak about our audience attributes.
Great, thank you so much. So now that we've talked a little bit about how we use targeting on the platform, what's absolutely mandatory, that language and that geo, let's get a little bit more into how we can use LinkedIn's audience attributes to actually build your ideal audience. So LinkedIn currently has 17 audience attributes available in our Campaign Manager platform. And of those 17, we break them out into kind of 5 different categories. 1 is company demographics, 2 is member demographics, education, job experience, and interests. You can use a combination of these to make sure that you're reaching people who fall into your key kind of personas. One good insider tip too, as we talk through all of these different options, is remember that while we can use these to reach those ideal members, we also can use all of these as exclusions. So that's another way that we can mix and match to make sure that you're reaching exactly the right types of people. So first, let's dive a little bit into how we use companies as a way to find company attributes and target certain company experiences. So if we take a look on the right, we're looking at a LinkedIn company page for our LinkedIn company, to be more specific. Company pages are built by an employee member, and in these they include information including obviously their company name, their company industry, their company size, as well as more information. LinkedIn uses these pages to actually create company targeting for you as a marketer. From these, we can target actual company names and exact types of companies. So from here, for example, we could actually target LinkedIn as a company and reach all the employees of LinkedIn. We can have up to 200 companies manually typed in our demographics, or we can target up to 300,000 companies using our matched audiences, which we'll talk about in a little bit further on in this presentation. If you wanted to expand your reach a little bit to certain types of industries that are kind of your key personas that you're trying to reach, we can use industry targeting to reach certain areas. For LinkedIn specific, that would be if you wanted to target the internet industry, you would reach LinkedIn and companies like it. One kind of insider tip and best practice that I do want to share is that one company can only use one company industry assigned to their page. So while someone may be thinking if they want to reach platforms, publishing platforms, media platforms that have ads, similar to how LinkedIn does in the newsfeed, they wouldn't be able to reach us by doing marketing and advertising. They'd have to reach us by also doing internet. So when you're kind of creating these industry targets, make sure you really expand to anyone who would be a good fit to capture everyone that you're looking to reach. It's a really great way to kind of include multiple industries and still get your key people. And further than that too, we have company size targeting. So company size is based on the number of employees that the company has, not necessarily what's actually on LinkedIn. So this is a really great way to actually get a real idea of if they're an enterprise company, small business company, or more mid-market. Company size, I also like to give a little tip too, because this is a great idea, one, to include, but this is also a perfect example of why you would maybe exclude targeting to get to your more niche audience. If you are looking for small businesses, for example, you could just exclude enterprise companies and above, so companies 500 employees and greater, and you would still be reaching all of that small business kind of market. So that's a great way to how you could use these two different audiences together. LinkedIn also has regular demographics for each of the members. So this includes gender and age targeting. One thing that I do kind of want to give some background about is that when you signed on to LinkedIn, you may have noticed that we didn't ask you your age and we didn't ask you your gender. The reason being is that we infer these based on the name for gender and the graduation date of college for age. So if you had the name Jordan, you'd be assumed to be male. And if you graduated in 2011, you would be assumed to be around 30 years old. What this means is that we don't usually recommend this as a target for most professional capabilities. For age targeting, we'll talk about years of experience, which tends to be a little bit better of a match. And for gender targeting, it's usually not needed if you're trying to reach a professional title. Where these can come into play is if you have really specific objectives. So we've seen gender targeting work if someone's running a female conference and looking to reach women who are women who would attend the women's conference, or if you're maybe having a retirement solution that you're looking to reach people who are getting to the end of their careers. So you may have mentioned me talking a little bit about seniority, about trying to reach people professionally, and that takes us into job experience. So this is a way to target people based on the type of roles that they have, the type of title that is listed on their LinkedIn profile. So in this example, we look at Mathilda. She's a senior marketing manager. And from that title, we're able to use that title and tie it into a standardized title group of marketing managers. We're able to pull the seniority of her role. She's a senior employee. And we're able to get the function of the role too, that she's a marketer. So let's dive in a little into each of those pieces so you can see how we would use them and the best practices associated. So starting with job function, this is a really great place to get started. This is going to open up the widest kind of net. You're going to be able to get all people related to the type of role you're looking to reach. For example, if you were looking to reach people who worked in the medical profession, the medical function would allow you to get people who, for example, a doctor. But instead of just a doctor, you'd also be able to reach nurses, veterinarians, surgeons, and dentists. So it captures a really wide net. In our previous example, you'd be able to reach all types of marketers. So you'd be able to reach everyone who that really applies to. And then you could always pair it with companies, industries to get a certain type of person. So one type of little insider tip that we sometimes suggest is if you were looking to reach a certain type of type of employee, using function and exclusions with titles is a really great way to still cast that scalable wide net, but make sure you're not receiving anyone you don't want to. For example, if you're looking to work with HR members who are kind of in charge of benefits of the office environment, but you don't want to reach recruiters, you can still use an HR function, but actually exclude recruiting titles. And speaking of job titles, let's talk a little bit more about that. Job titles are grouped together in creating standardized titles. For example, we have the engineering function, but with job titles, we can get more specific and reach software engineers as a whole. We can also get more specific and reach petroleum drilling engineers, mechanical engineers. It allows us to get a little bit more specific than that general engineering function maybe would allow. One thing that I do want to kind of provide some context here too is that when you use titles, you're getting a little bit stricter. So you're really narrowing that scope of who you're reaching. So what you don't want to do is only target 1 or 2 titles and then accidentally miss out on a really great array of people who still are a good fit. For example, if we're targeting marketing managers, that means we're also not targeting head of marketing, VP of marketing, marketing directors. So make sure to include a large array of titles and ones that fit. The great news is LinkedIn will auto-populate and auto-suggest some titles related to what you're typing in with keywords, so make sure that you kind of really expand that to broaden scale. And finally, within that job experience attribute, we have seniority. So this is based on the title people have and kind of where they fall within that organization. So if someone was a senior marketing manager, she would likely fall under senior or manager seniority. And seniorities aren't always what you think. There's kind of 2 aspects of this that we always like to call out as a best practice. One, entry can be a little bit confusing, or it doesn't always represent, I think, who it actually is there. For example, entry means they're an individual contributor. They're someone who doesn't have direct reports underneath them. So what that means is that you could have a software architect who has 20 years of experience, and he would fall under entry. So you want to make sure that you're not excluding people just because maybe you didn't think who that person could be or if they could be a good fit. The other piece of that too is that LinkedIn is so valuable for providing the entire buying committee. If you're looking to reach everyone who influences a decision, you will want to reach the directors and above who have the actual signing power, but you also want to reach out everyone who influences that. The members who are actually going to be using that product, the senior people who are leads of their team. So make sure you include a wide net of seniorities to get that full experience on the platform. And finally, years of experience. You've probably heard this now a few times, but this is what I was suggesting instead of age targeting. This is a great way to reach people based on the years of professional experience. So the right way to use this is, again, as a replacement for age targeting to understand someone who's been in the workforce for a certain number of time, kind of infer where they are in their career and how long that they've been in the kind of work environment. What this isn't necessarily as good for is for seniority. If you're looking to reach decision makers, that's still going to lie, I think, best with seniority, as years of experience really just adds up LinkedIn workforce and is a great kind of age substitute. Some other ways that we've seen people really successfully use this is we have a lot of education vertical advertisers. So they tend to use years of experience with professional degrees as a way to kind of see who might be a great candidate for an MBA, for a master's program, and further. Other ways to do this are with years of experience in a certain function. So you can reach people who are really thought leaders and functional leaders in their industry. They've been in maybe engineering for that 20 plus years. So I'm really excited about this one. Skills is probably my favorite way to target on LinkedIn. Skills lets you reach members with a special expertise. You can get really specific and reach a lot of really great exact topics by targeting skills-related keywords. So this takes into account the skills self-identified on a profile, keywords found throughout the profile, and inferred skills. What this allows you to do is increase relevancy, performance, scale, and ROI. One kind of insider tip way to look at this is that people might be working on something or wear a lot of hats, so their title and what they actually do and maybe who you're trying to reach don't always line up. So if you're looking at a small business, people tend to do a lot of things and work with a lot of teams. Skills would be a great way to, for example, reach someone who works in recruiting, but because they work at a small business, they may have a larger title than just recruiter. And this is kind of a way to bridge that gap. It's also a great way to, if you want to reach someone one way with titles, you can test a second way with skills. So always keep in mind there's multiple ways to reach that one persona. You should definitely test them on LinkedIn. Education targeting lets you target where people have gone to school, the type of degrees they have, Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science, MBA, JD, and the fields of study that they worked in. One kind of quick tip too is that if you are looking to reach alumni of a certain university, for example, if you wanted to reach Harvard alumni, you would have to target the school, but also make sure to include their subsidiaries. So you would want Harvard University, you'd want Harvard Business School, Harvard Med School, etc. So now we're into our final kind of group of attributes, which is interest targeting. So the first one of these are groups. Amanda mentioned this a little bit earlier, but members can actually seek out and join groups on LinkedIn to talk to their peers about certain topics. For example, there's a B2B technology marketing community where people can talk to their members, ask questions, meet their peers, and you can actually target people who have expertise or interest in a certain area based on the groups they joined. What this also means is that they're usually really active on LinkedIn and actively looking for content around it, and you can be the perfect person to reach them. Finally, we have interest targeting. So this is really exciting. It just rolled out this year, and it's one of our only activity-based demographics, which means instead of using something on their profile, we're actually looking at how they interact on our platform surrounding certain topics on LinkedIn. So as you might notice, we have a ton of different general topics, and within that we have really niche ones too. So from our marketing advertising umbrella, you can focus in on people who are looking at exactly B2B marketing, people who are looking exactly at customer experience. And these are kind of created based off of who they follow in the newsfeed, what they interact with, and their being intent with our Microsoft partnership. So one great way to use interest targeting is to leverage it to lead kind of that thought leadership around a certain topic of conversation. So we've covered a lot. We've walked through all the different attributes and how you can use them, the best practices, and the fact that we can kind of combine and exclude to create that key persona. So let's take a quick poll question and kind of talk through a scenario. Marie is a marketer in the technology industry at a small to mid-sized company with marketing-related skills such as demand generation, SEO, social media, and project management. What are some ways that you would target Marie?
Have that coming in on Slido, so feel free to answer that question on the Slido form right now, and we'll see those as they start to come in. So we have some coming in. We have skills and seniority targeting.
Awesome. We'll have some slides too that walk through some ideas on how we do it, and you nailed a slide there, so congrats.
Have another one coming in, skills as well.
Awesome. Yeah, skills is a really great way to target that. I know I had a personal bias in there in the beginning. That was my favorite, but it's a really great option to reach people who have, project management, for example, was not listed in their title. So that's a really great way to reach people who are doing something like that in certain companies.
Yeah, we have quite a few still coming through from the Slido.
Awesome.
A lot around skills, job function, industry, company size, and skills.
Awesome. Love that people are kind of thinking from the company perspective too. It's not just the title, but you can reach people at certain types of companies, like that tech one that she's in.
Perfect. All right.
Awesome. Great, guys. I think one of the best things looking at that too is there's so many different ways to create pools of audiences in which Marie is a part of them. So kind of focusing on the first kind of broader one, we can use function and seniority. She's in a marketing role, so we can use functions like marketing, media, and communications, and senior manager, director, VP, CXO to reach people like Marie. So she falls into this great group, and it's a little bit broader with function and seniority. The other piece too is if we were looking maybe for the type of employees who work at a company rather than necessarily what their role is, we can still reach Marie by doing the company industry she works in. So focusing on tech and company size of that kind of 200 to 10,000 plus, that mid-market enterprise level. And then finally, we can get a little bit more specific. So this is where we narrow in a little bit more on Marie and what she does day to day. So we can focus on the function of marketing and media communication, but also focus on skills like digital marketing, search engine marketing, that she has a special expertise in. So we can get a little bit more specific in people like her and what she does. And I noticed this in Slido too. Some people mentioned groups. That's a really great option. So if Marie has joined a few groups, we can reach Marie when in her B2B tech marketing community. We can reach them in tech jobs and marketing pros. There's a lot of different groups we can create and reach people who have expressed interest and are highly active on LinkedIn. So I think with that, we'll leave a room for a few quick questions before we dive into the next piece.
Yes, so if you have questions specifically for Julia, please start to put them in the Slido right now. One question that did come up is if I run an account-based marketing campaign to only one company, how can I do that on LinkedIn?
Sure.
They think their target audience might be too small.
Got it. So that's a good question. We do have the capability to do that. When I first mentioned that we can target by company attributes, there was company name included. So you can just click company names and type in that one company. It is important to note, though, that scale will be kind of an issue there. As Amanda mentioned, we do have kind of that ideal audience around 50,000 where it's really, there's a lot of room for growth for you, a lot of room for kind of a longer campaign, but we do have a minimum to actually run of 300 members. So if that one audience is larger than 300, you do have the option to put things against it. And see if there's any sort of scalability there. Obviously, something small business versus an IBM would have a lot different kind of options. Something to kind of take away too is take a look at their profile on LinkedIn. See what kind of industry that they list themselves under, and you can reach similar industries that way too if you wanted to go a little bit broader.
So we'll take one more question. Just feel free to type those in on the right-hand side. The poll's not live since we're not doing a poll right now, but you can always type in questions along the route if they come out throughout the presentation, and we'll be taking them when we get to each Q&A section. So we have one more that came in. Is it possible to add negative keywords for a job title? For example, exclude anyone who is self-employed.
Sure. Yes, so we can do exclusions on everything that we talked about. So one thing that we can do is there's a few different ways we can exclude self-employed. One is we do have company size that is myself only. So you can exclude people who are myself only, meaning if they work at a company that is just them, they're starting a really new small business, you won't be reaching them. Other kind of aspects are you can also exclude people who have title of, founder, or if you wanted to get more specific, you can exclude function entrepreneurship. So I didn't speak too much about this on the slide, but you'll have a copy of it later. You can take a look. Entrepreneurship function includes people who are founders and owners. So those are kind of two different ways you can exclude them, and you won't be reaching those people who are kind of that solopreneur mentality or persona.
So we have one more question that came in. The minimum target audience that was mentioned before really wasn't clear to me. Is it 15,000 or 50,000? And what if my targeting group is around 900?
Sure. So there's kind of two different directions we were looking at. There's LinkedIn absolutely cannot target if it's under a minimum, and that's 300 people. So yes, you can target to an audience of 900 members. But there's also a best practice audience that we use as a suggestion, particularly for starting on LinkedIn. So our best practice, if we were to work with us one-on-one, we would kind of push you in the direction of make sure you have an audience of 50,000 members or above. That gives you a lot of scale. It gives you a lot of information into who's engaging in that type of thing, which we'll cover in the optimizations. But the actual physical minimum cannot sponsor content due to our members first policy is 300 and below. Great.
So with that, we're going to move on to matched audiences.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Maisha. So to the audience member who asked the question about matched audiences and targeting by company, great timing because we're going to get into that into some more detail. And to clarify for the person who asked about the minimum audience size, I know 50 and 15 can sound similar, so it's 50,000. My apologies if that wasn't clear earlier. So let's jump on in. So earlier I had mentioned that there's two different ways to target on LinkedIn. So you can target with our first-party data by using member profile information, and then you can also use your own first-party data to target people or companies that you already know. So let's talk a little bit about how that works. So basically with matched audiences, we can combine our member data with your data. So the way that works is it kind of falls into four different buckets: website retargeting, data integrations, email contact targeting, and also account or company targeting. So we'll talk a little bit more into detail about how those four work. But what we did was we did a study with members that were using either contact targeting, which is like targeting a list of email addresses, or company targeting, to see how it impacted their cost per lead. And what we actually found in that particular study was that there was a 14% decrease in cost per lead. The benefit of matched audiences, or I should say one of the major key takeaways, is just making sure that your audience and who you want to target is as accurate as possible. And you can also combine that with our data. So let's say, for example, you had a list of companies, and within those companies, you wanted to target people that worked in the IT job function. We take your data and then match it up to our group of 645 million professionals on LinkedIn, so you can target them that way. We also have partnerships with the following CRM systems. So if any of you use Salesforce, Marketo, Eloqua, Zapier, LiveRamp. We also have a partnership with HubSpot that just recently launched. You can actually share your contact list or your lists of companies with your campaign manager account. So you can integrate the two, which is really cool. And it, of course, prevents you from having to do the manual list uploads. So let's dive into this in a little bit more detail. And also, guys, just a reminder, keep the questions coming. We want to keep this interactive. We want to make sure that, we're getting to all the questions. So please feel free to send them in. So we're going to take a look at the four different examples of matched audience targeting. So first, we have website retargeting. So some of you guys may have heard or even experienced being retargeted. I know that I'm an avid online shopper, guilty as charged. So for example, if I go on a clothing website and I either look at a product or I add something to my cart without finishing a purchase, I notice that an ad for that brand or for that particular product will follow me around online until I make that purchase. So website retargeting on LinkedIn works exactly the same. So an example of how you would use website retargeting is that you can retarget people or reach people that have visited a particular product page on your website. Or you can retarget people that have reached a sign-up page for like a 30-day trial that you might offer. So the really cool thing about retargeting is that you can actually tailor your ads and your content to that specific audience. So if it's about a specific product, if they've engaged with a group or a specific page on your website, it's a really good opportunity to reach those people that have already shown some affinity or interest in your brand. The second example we have here is going to be email contact targeting. So you can actually upload a list of email addresses. Let's say you had a list of prospect clients that you'd like to reach, or a list of people that maybe signed up for a demo, a 30-day trial, to maybe download a report or a white paper that you have. You can reach those people specifically. You can also use email contact targeting as a list, or email contact targeting lists for exclusions. So let's say you have a list of customers that have already either closed business with your company, they've already spoken to a sales rep, and you want to make sure that you're reaching net new people. You can also upload that list to your campaign manager account and use it as an exclusion. The same goes for account or company targeting. I have a lot of clients that will upload lists of different brands and companies that are on their prospect list, people that they want to reach more specifically, or if they have a list of brands that maybe have been identified by their sales team of people that they want to reach or have a higher likelihood of becoming qualified leads. So those are a great way to use company lists. You can also use a company list as an exclusion as well. The other cool thing about company targeting is that you can actually tailor messaging So for example, you can use a message ad or what we call LinkedIn InMail. I'm sure you guys have received InMail. So if you're targeting companies that all fall within like a particular industry, or you're targeting people that all work in a similar function at these different companies, you can, for example, if you're targeting salespeople at a bunch of different IT companies, you can actually send them like a message ad, for example, that addresses that people in that function specifically. So another opportunity to personalize your advertising, which is great. And then last but not least, which is one of the targeting features that we recently rolled out, we have lookalike audience targeting. So the way lookalike audience targeting works is, let's say you upload a list of email contacts. And let's just say, for the sake of an example, like the question from earlier, you have about 900 people in that list that match up to our first party data. 900 is on the smaller side, and if we need to create additional scale, what you now can do is create a lookalike audience based on that list of email addresses. And so what that does is that will allow you to target people who model after that current audience list. And they'll have very similar profile attributes. Lookalike audiences can also help a lot with scale. So if we're looking at a smaller audience group and we want to expand that, lookalike can be a great option. You can also use like a list of existing customers or companies that you've worked with to create lookalikes as well. You can do it based on companies or based on email targeting lists, email contact lists, excuse me. So another way that you can use your first party data is by using the LinkedIn Insights tag. So what the Insights tag is, it's a lightweight JavaScript tag that's provided with every Campaign Manager account, and it's free to use. That Insights tag is placed on your website, and it has 3 key functions and capabilities that you can use it for. So one, which is a free set of demographics we provide, is called website demographics. So what the Insights tag does, it actually tracks the members on LinkedIn that are visiting your website. And it tracks that data. So what job functions are they falling into? What companies are they coming from? What company sizes are they coming from? And the cool thing about website demographics is it's not just specific to the people who have actually reached your website through clicking on a paid ad. It's anybody who has a LinkedIn profile. So we can collect that data to give you insight on who actually is really visiting your website. This can be really helpful with developing targeting and creating targets. And really getting a better understanding of what your audience looks like. You can also use it for retargeting, as we mentioned earlier. So you will need to have the Insights tag placed on your website in order to leverage website retargeting on LinkedIn. And then last but not least, you can leverage it for conversion tracking, which of course is the way that you can track actions on your website, whether that be a specific page visit, someone downloading a white paper or some type of asset on your website, filling out an email contact form, things of that nature. So that one Insights tag has those 3 functionalities. So if you're already using something like website retargeting or conversion tracking, you don't have to worry about taking that additional step. For those of you guys who have not yet used the LinkedIn Insights tag, an insider tip is it's best to have the tag placed on the global footer of your website. That allows the website, the tag, to track all pages that fall within your website domain.
Quick question on this that came through.
Sure.
With website retargeting. Do we need to have a privacy policy that says accept these cookies on our website due to CCPA?
So it's always great to have a privacy policy on your website. So the answer to that question is yes. As long as it's accessible, I would say mainly on your homepage or at the bottom, that would be ideal. And just so you know, all of the Insights tag and all the LinkedIn products are GDPR compliant as well, because I know we get a lot of questions about that. So yeah, good job playing it safe. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit more about website retargeting and how it can be used to re-engage your website visitors. So the way it works, of course, is step 1, place the Insights tag on your website if you haven't done it already. And then what you can actually do is create these different audiences based on specific pages that they visited. So let's say that I have my own website, amandagreen.com, and I want to target people that have visited a specific product page. Let's say amandagreen.com/product A. What I can do is go into my Campaign Manager account and specify I want to create an audience to track members that have reached this particular page. From there, what I can do is I can create my own ads and ad campaign to target people who have specifically reached or engaged with that page. Again, if you already have that insights tag installed on your website, you've already completed steps 1. So from there, all you'd have to do is go in and create that website retargeting audience and just specifying so that our system knows who to count in that audience. Actually, one more thing I wanted to mention about website retargeting. So as you guys know, when we're thinking about building a list and tracking visitors over time, it can take some time. So if you plan on doing retargeting anytime in the future, I highly encourage you to create those audiences now so that we're not missing out on any potential traffic that you're getting at this moment. Because it can take those lists a little while to build. So the good idea is to, if you create an audience and you're ready to target maybe, let's say, February or March of 2020, that list will have plenty of people in it. So just keep that in mind, that they take some time to build. So let's talk about a couple of different use cases. So if we're thinking about like the sales funnel from, the brand awareness perspective, when they start learning more about what you offer, to that bottom of the funnel where they're actually ready to make a decision or make a purchase. If you are able to retarget, if you are able to track people, let's say, for example, that added one of their products to a cart but never purchased, that would be a great way to use website retargeting, or people who have maybe gotten to the page where they fill out their contact information but never hit submit. That's a great opportunity to reach people that are right at that buying stage of the funnel. And again, targeting them with personalized messaging. If you think about when you're on your LinkedIn platform, what ads are you more likely to click on? Ads that are maybe more general, or ads that maybe call you out specifically, either by your job title or by a brand that you've engaged with. So when you think about how to structure that, just put yourself in your customer's shoes. And then also, like, different examples you can put where you can create audiences would be like on a product details page, information about pricing, or like a page where you have information on how to leverage a demo. Cool. Do we have any other questions coming in about retargeting before we move on?
I'm checking right now.
Okay.
Some questions around retargeting.
Awesome.
There's one about, can you do a lookalike audience with website retargeting? Do you want to take that now or wait till we get to the lookalike section?
We're going to get to lookalike section. So yes, hold that thought. Thank you for calling that out, Maisha. We will get to that. So for right now, we're going to hop over to account or company targeting. So the way that works is that you can upload a CSV list of either companies or brands that you'd like to target or that you'd like to exclude. We actually have the CSV templates in our Campaign Manager tool, so you can download them right from the tool, which is really great. And earlier, like I mentioned, you can actually combine them with LinkedIn's demographic data. So if you have a list of companies, you can layer that on with different skills or job titles, or even seniority levels. So you can specify who within those companies you would like to reach. And you can also, the great part about using a list of companies, you can separate those lists based on industry or company size. If you have a mix, you can also layer on industry and company size if you want to target specifics within that list. So a good account targeting use case would be, for example, on the right-hand side, we have some dynamic ads, which is one of our ad units that actually personalizes with your name and your profile picture. So again, it's a great way to leverage like one of our more customized ad units, whether it's based on a specific industry or based on a specific group of companies that you're targeting. We actually did a study and we saw that there was a 326% lift in performance where members on LinkedIn saw like a picture of themselves versus maybe like a more stock image. So personalization can go a long way. So for contact targeting, it works pretty similarly in terms of how you use it in the tool. We have a template for email list that you can leverage. So you'd upload that CSV file. You can also, like I mentioned earlier, link your Campaign Manager account with your different data integration systems. So like I said, Marketo, Eloqua, LiveRamp, HubSpot, Zapier are some examples of ones that we have partnerships with. And what that will do is you can automatically basically share those contact lists from your marketing automation system to your campaign manager account. One of the key benefits of doing this is actually you don't have to, let's say that you're constantly adding members or email addresses to these lists or adding companies. You don't have to worry about manually going in and re-uploading the CSV files. Your marketing automation will update automatically. So that's a benefit and just makes it a little bit easier if any of you guys are leveraging any of our data integration partners.
Amanda, I'm glad you mentioned that because we did have a question that came in specifically asking about how you link HubSpot with LinkedIn for matched audiences. So I'm glad you touched on the automation component of that as well.
Absolutely. What we can do, I'll double check. There are some resources on the different partner websites that have the instructions on how you can set everything up. So I believe we can send that out as a follow-up. And they're also available in our help center as well. We have the links to the third-party websites that'll give you all the steps. Great question. And again, you still have the option to upload that CSV directly into Campaign Manager. And so what it does, it takes all the email addresses and it matches it up to the 645 million members on LinkedIn, and it'll produce an audience size. One thing to keep in mind for contact targeting and for account targeting, lists do take about 24 hours to process. So once you upload them, you want to give it about a day or so, and then you will be able to log in and see what the match rate is and how many members are actually in that audience from the list that you have uploaded. So contact targeting use cases. So it's a great way when you think about it, marketing from a nurture perspective. So for example, like I said, if you have a list of prospect clients or maybe clients that, let's say you had a conference or an event that expressed some type of interest in your brand, it's a great way to kind of move them down the stream, as I would say. So addressing them specifically, whether they have filled out some contact information, attended one of your events, or even purchased one of your products, somebody that you want to upsell. And then I would say, like with contact lists, it's really good to use a mix of gated and ungated content. So what that means for those of you guys who are newer to the platform, gated just means they actually have to fill out some information or put something in to get whatever the offering is. So for example, if I have to put in my name and my email address in order to download a white paper, that would be considered gated content. Ungated content is when you can just click through and get right to whatever the asset or the offering is. So it's good to keep in mind to have a mix of that content when you're leveraging content. And I would even contact or account targeting. I would say it's good to leverage that for both. So just a couple quick tips on account and contact targeting. Like I said, the templates are provided in the Campaign Manager tool. The tool can be a little fickle, so I would say using the templates is the safest way to make sure that there aren't any errors with your uploads. It can be, like I mentioned earlier, 24 to 48 hours. I would always say give yourself a 48-hour window to allow the list to match because it does depend on the size of the list. As Julia mentioned earlier, the minimum size for a list upload is going to be 300. So at least 300 members have to match to our system data in order for you to be able to use that list. Again, scale is important. So if you have an audience that's 300 members, that's great. But I would say that may not be the best practice in terms of what's going to be effective for you to be able to reach the right people on LinkedIn.
Quick question on the account targeting template that came in.
Yes.
The template includes both company name and website URL.
Yes.
Do you have to include both for LinkedIn to match them?
That is a great question, and you do not. You can use, the company name is the only set of data that's required. Website, I'll kind of tell you what that's used for. It just sort of helps with the match accuracy. So for example, if like you have LinkedIn incorporated on your list versus maybe how it shows up on the LinkedIn platform or their company page, using that website domain will just help the system match it a little bit more effectively, but it's not required. Great question. And then sort of the don'ts in terms of account and contact targeting. You want to avoid hyper targeting, so uploading a list that's not enough. So for like email contacts, we recommend a minimum of 10,000 emails. The one thing you want to keep in mind is that when you think about how we match it up to our system. So you may have an email address that a member is not using on their profile. So it's not always going to be 100% of a match. So the more email addresses you have, the better. And then for company lists, we recommend at least 1,000 companies. Again, this is just to make sure that you have a solid match rate and a solid audience size. And then the last part of that hyper-targeting portion, what you don't want to do is you don't want to layer too many additional audience criteria on top of those lists. So you don't want to have like a contact list and then layer on function, skills, company size, age. You want to make sure that, I would say pick like between 2, maybe 3, because the more layers you add, the more limited it's going to make that audience size. Cool. Another portion of audience targeting is, to go back to our point on scale, is to use audience expansion. So for those of you, audience expansion and lookalike audiences. So to cover the portion on audience expansion, for those of you who have had a chance to kind of go into the Campaign Manager tool and build a target, we actually have a demo coming up, so if you haven't, don't worry. You actually have the option to include what's called audience expansion. So what that does is that it increases the scale of your audience and your campaign by delivering your ads to members who might be interested or might have like similar attributes to who you are targeting. It's useful for campaigns that are more like awareness-based or engagement-based, which we consider maybe like top funnel content. Would not recommend using audience expansion if your particular campaign or program is a little bit more specific. If you're, actually trying to get like very specific members, you can just uncheck that box to make sure we don't include that those additional members. And then with lookalike audiences, as I mentioned earlier, you can create like a mirror audience off of your account or contact lists to target people who are similar to those audience or who have similar audience attributes. Let's see. So to kind of dive more into lookalike audiences. So with lookalike audiences, we primarily build those audiences based on members that are active on LinkedIn. We want to make sure that, of course, it's as effective as possible. So we had a question earlier if we could use website retargeting audiences for lookalikes, and the answer to that question, I believe, is no. You have to, it's based off of either contact or account level targeting, or what we consider like a seed audience. And then for an insider tip, again, just to mention, lookalike audience is great for scale. So if you think about, you have a list of people that maybe you've already reached, and it's like these were the perfect clients, or even a list of like your ideal, qualified leads that you've received in the past. Those are great audiences to start with to build a lookalike audience. Any questions on, was there any other questions on lookalike audiences?
Not necessarily on lookalike, but we did have some questions around audience expansion.
Okay, great.
So one that came through is audience expansion based mainly on titles?
It's based on all of the different targeting criteria. So it's not just job titles. It can be based on skills, company size, interests, member groups. So it uses sort of a collective of all of the member profile data. Also, when you think about when we're using like a company list or a contact list, it will also, and you have audience expansion turned on, it will also consider the members in that list as well when we think about expanding. So again, better for campaigns that are more awareness or consideration based.
And one more question that came in,
Sure.
Specifically around audience expansion, is have you ever experienced audience expansion being successful for some of the campaigns where I've enabled it? To me, it's actually decreased the quality of the leads.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more about how to use audience expansion and the quality of the leads that come through with that as well?
Absolutely. I say audience expansion is great to leverage if you're sort of in the discovery phase of finding out who is your best target audience on LinkedIn. So it's not, let's say if you had a specific offering where you were trying to generate leads or maybe track signups or get people to fill out their contact information, and you had a very specific group of members that you wanted to reach, it may not be the best option. But if I had like a brand awareness campaign running and my audience was pretty broad, let's say I just wanted to reach people in like the IT and operations job function. The way that it can be beneficial is if you enable audience expansion, we provide demographic data in the Campaign Manager tool. So if you're using it in one of your campaigns and you want to see, well, who else am I reaching? Where is most of my traffic going to? You can also look at that campaign demographic data, which will give you a better read on who's actually engaging. So I would say if it's not working for you, turn it off. It's not going to be a fit for everyone in every campaign, to be fully transparent. So great question. Any other ones on audience expansion?
No, I think we can move on.
Okay, cool. So I get a lot of questions on like, what's the difference between audience expansion and lookalike audiences? So let's talk about that. So for audience expansion, it's primarily based on audience attribute targeting. So basically you can turn it on when you're just using targeting that's based on member profile data. With lookalike audiences, it's specifically created from either a contact list or a list of companies. So, and then you can kind of segment it more specifically. Like a lookalike audience you actually create, you can see an audience size, whereas audience expansion is just a box that you check. And again, to kind of consider the use cases for audience expansion, when you are targeting criteria that's maybe a little bit less specific, when you're looking to scale campaigns for like awareness, consideration, engagement. Lookalike audience is a really great option to use when you're when you have a quality website audience or you have a quality list of contacts or companies. You can leverage it if you want more control over who you're targeting. And again, it's a great use if you need additional scale. Oh, another point on lookalike audience that I want to make sure I make. So when you create, I get a lot of questions on, well, will there be any overlap? If I create a lookalike audience, is it going to mirror or include anybody that's in my original seed audience? And the answer is no. Those members, whether they fall in the same company or the same group of contact lists, they are not included. Cool. So another couple of tips is you want to make sure that you start with a qualified audience that you already know. I always think when I talk to my clients about like media planning, it's always helpful to pull up like someone's profile, like this is the perfect person that we want to target. This is an ideal qualified lead. This is what the makeup of their profile is. Because it can be really like helpful to take a look at where they're located, what company they work for, what skills they have. So yeah, identifying those people who model your ideal customer. Again, you can do that with a list of emails, or if you want to target based on people who have visited a specific page on your website, it's a really great way to do it. Starting with a list of audience who are maybe what we call pre-qualified. So we only want to reach people who have maybe looked at this particular ebook or who have landed on a piece of gated content that you've promoted, or people who are visiting like a page about pricing who might be in that stage where they're ready to buy or make a decision. So it's okay to refine it that way. And then last but not least, leverage an audience that has already been vetted by sales. So I mentioned earlier, I have a few clients and I've worked with a lot of marketers who will work directly with their sales team to find out, what are you guys seeing on your end? Who would it be valuable for you to reach? Whether that's specific brands and companies, or whether that's a list of particular people that you can get from your sales team. Marketing and sales alignment is always a great idea. So if you have not spoken to your sales team directly, I encourage you guys to do that. Okay, now we have our next poll question. So the question is, how would you use matched audiences to convert prospects or leads?
Perfect. And while the poll question is coming through, feel free to do that, and we'll also be taking questions as well. So get your questions in while you're also looking at the poll too.
So we have a question that came through that said, do we have a partnership with Hootsuite? That I'm not certain of. If we're talking, I don't think for the data integration, we do not have that as of yet. Website retargeting based off of those people that visited our product page, correct? Good job. Any more answers? Excluding a list of current customers, that's a great one. Got any more coming through? Cool. I don't know if we have any more coming through on the poll, but, oh, we do. Uploading a list of our sales team's ideal companies. Great job. All of these are great ways, and all of these are correct. retargeting and nurturing campaigns, absolutely. Great job, you guys. Thank you guys for participating. Do we have any other questions that came through?
We do, and this, we'll go into best practices, and then we'll go into the Q&A questions for this as well.
Awesome. So just to kind of cover the match audience best practices, you want to make sure that you test different audience types. So no two audiences are going to perform the same. So don't be afraid to test like a retargeting audiences and a contact targeting list to see what's going to perform the best. It also doesn't have to be one or the other. You may find that running both simultaneously works well for you. Identify your audience for each phase in the funnel. If you think about it from brand awareness perspective, that's where your audience is going to want to be more broad, because we're still discovering who it is, who's going to be the ideal candidate or who's going to be the ideal group of qualified leads. So that top, middle, and the bottom of the funnel, that's how you want to think about it. Review your campaign demographics. Like I mentioned earlier, it comes with your campaign manager account, and it is so helpful, not just from a perspective of like who should we be targeting, but it also can help from an exclusion perspective as well. You don't want to layer on too many additional facets. So like I said, keep it in that 2 to 3 range. Anything more than that can definitely limit the scale. And then again, starting with the source of 300 members or more is what's going to qualify you to be able to use either a website retargeting list or an account or a contact list.
Well, that is a great segue, because the first question we have coming in on our Q&A component is, when targeting a company name, if they don't have over 500 employees, is that company not an option for them to target? How do you recommend targeting either multiple small companies or small accounts? What are some workarounds around that?
Great question. So as long as there's 300 members in that company, you can target it. However, I would say if you're targeting smaller companies, I would upload a list of multiple to try to make that target audience a little bit larger. The other way you can do it is by using company size. So for example, I think it's like we have the option, it's like 1 to 50 and then 50 to 200. And I believe it's 201 to 500 is also an option. So it might be better to target, like if you want to target small and medium businesses, by just using the company size, and then you can also use a layer of an industry. So if you wanted to target like small, medium businesses that work in the IT or internet industry, you can layer those on as well. That might be a better option and create additional scale.
So a follow-up to that is, if an issue that I've had with my lists that are over 300 is that they don't match to a large enough audience because they're primarily business emails. Can you talk a little bit more about how we do the workaround with matching with business emails versus personal emails on LinkedIn?
Yes, great question. So we find that a lot too, is that the email address is provided. I would say that would be kind of going back to the A/B testing portion. So if you're finding that you have a lot of customers or potential clients that have business emails that aren't matching up, you may want to consider targeting those companies more specifically. So if it's like at amandagreen.com, if I was my own corporation, and you were getting a bunch of emails, you want to target the company specifically rather than the email addresses, because there's really not anything we can do to control what members use on their profile, and a lot of them do use their personal email addresses. So if you're finding that you have a lot of that, I would build a company list on this, in addition to the contact list, because that may help you create more scale.
And you can always layer also the type of function that you're trying to reach, the type of, if you know that you have a list of directors or managers, you always have the ability to layer on extra. So you can kind of make that a workaround and probably even reach people who would be a good fit whose emails you didn't have.
Yes, great point, Jules.
And with that, to keep us moving, we're going to actually let Julia take over and give us a demo. And again, we'll have time at the very end to go through any questions that may come through that we may not be able to get through as well.
Great, thanks Amanda. So we've talked through now our regular demographic targeting attributes and our matched audiences options. So we wanted to be able to give a quick targeting demo on what it would look like within the CM tool itself for those who haven't had a chance maybe to look at it, or just wanted a kind of quick reminder of where to find everything. So we're going to start off in our demo account. From here we'll create, From here we'll create a campaign, which will take us to the first step of building out an audience. For this, we'll just assume that we want to send people to our website, so we'll select website visits to get started on actually building out that target piece. As we mentioned earlier, the first thing that is absolutely required is a geography. Right now we have this defaulted to United States, but you can add in locations just by going through and the kind of overall umbrella or just searching for certain locations. We can also get more specific, so we could always exit out of the United States and look up, for example, the San Francisco DMA. So all of these are options available, but you will need to at least select one greater geography. You also have your language set up, so make sure that's the correct place that's the correct language you would like. And then you can move on to actually narrowing your audience further. So for example, if we wanted to get a little bit deeper, we're already targeting the US, and we wanted to reach these marketing managers, we can start off by looking at job experience. We have all the attributes kind of created that umbrella topic that we walked through, and by clicking on this, we'll find all the different pieces below it. So if we wanted to start off, we could take a look at functions and either scroll through or just search for marketing. You'll notice as we update our campaign targeting audience, the target audience size will also update. So you'll be able to see how large this audience is, and as we narrow in on kind of our exact persona, we'll be able to get an idea of how many people are available. So if we're looking right now, we are targeting all marketers in the US. Let's go a little bit deeper and make sure that we're reaching marketing managers right now and go back to job experience and add seniority on top of it. So right now we've gone a little bit deeper and we have about 1.7 million members. We're targeting the type of roles we're trying to reach, but if we want to target types of companies, we can add layers on that too. For example, if we know that we're trying to reach people who work at a certain company size or a certain company industry, we can pick from here. So for right now, let's go to the tech industry and scroll down till we see a good fit here and take a look at software and IT services. For this, we can do some key pieces. And now we have 200,000 members who are managers in marketing roles at tech companies. So we've gone pretty specific. One thing that I do want to call out is that if we wanted to make sure we weren't reaching some, for example, we didn't want to reach small businesses, we could exclude audiences now and go to, for example, company size. So we could exclude the ones that we wanted to reach. Or if we wanted to exclude enterprise, we can make sure that we're not reaching enterprise companies. We're maybe looking for people who work in marketing at smaller or faster growing audiences. So right now we have a pretty set up account. Again, another thing I wanted you to notice is this forecasted results on the side is really, really helpful. It's going to give you a lot of information about your account and what your kind of options are. Whenever you update that daily budget, for example, if we did $200 a day, this will update too with what your possible 30-day spend is, the possible 30-day impressions depending on performance, average CTR to be expected, and number of clicks. So you'll be able to get kind of an idea of how many people will be going to your landing page based on your budget and this audience. You'll notice that we have been doing and targeting for all of these pieces. So we're reaching marketers who also have management experience, who also work in tech. We do now have OR targeting available. And I wanted to give that a quick call out too, that you have that option to go here. One of the things that this is kind of good for is creating scale. So it's great for if you know that you need to meet people in this industry, but they don't necessarily need to have that function. Maybe all you need is that you need to have the marketing function or marketing skills. This would be a great use case for using that OR targeting. So we'll do B2B marketing.
Julia, I'm glad that you're touching on that because we actually had a question about why would we use the OR function versus AND. So thanks for walking us through this demo.
Awesome, no problem, guys. It's a really great way, for example, when we mention skills targeting, maybe their role doesn't necessarily line up if they are at that small business, but we'll make sure that if they're in charge of B2B marketing, we are reaching them, whether they work in marketing or have that skill associated, and also have the seniorities in place as well as the industries. So it's just another way to kind of build a really robust audience and make sure that you're reaching everyone you want. Another option too is to, of course, just create a second campaign and test the two against each other. So that way you can see, is skills working better or is the function working better? So you kind of have two different directions you could take that. Great. So right now we've built out a custom audience. We also have some really great audiences that are LinkedIn audiences. These are LinkedIn's most popular audiences. They're kind of a great starting point that you always have the ability to kind of look through and see if there's one that's a good fit. So if we click here and click See All Audiences, you'll notice that there's a lot of templates here. And you can see if there's one that's a good fit for what you're looking to do. For example, if we were looking for maybe event planners, we could click Event Planners and apply that to our audience. So we'll select that. When you apply this, it will override whatever audience you had in there before. So just a note, if you're looking to kind of keep a few of the same, make sure you do this at the beginning to avoid any loss of that. So we'll hit OK. And now we're targeting event planning titles, and we didn't have to type them out. LinkedIn already knows this is a really popular audience, and here's a great way to reach them. It's also a really healthy audience size because it is a LinkedIn best practice, LinkedIn suggested. One of the great things here too is you're not just stuck with this saved audience. It's a great jumping off point, and it can definitely be used just as this. But if you did have any sort of other pieces that had to be included, you can always add that in to get a little bit more specific. So if you wanted to do the same thing with including, company size is still a big thing, you're focused on small businesses, you can still go ahead and do that and get more specific. One other thing that I wanted to point out that Amanda did touch on is we have audience expansion enabled. So this is where you're able to reach people with similar target audience based on attributes like titles, companies, or skills. If you were looking at a general kind of idea of who you wanted to reach, this is a little bit high level. I may have mentioned earlier with title targeting, a lot of people sometimes stop at just event manager, event planner, and they wouldn't have included all these other ones. That's where audience expansion really does have a great benefit, is for that kind of top level prospecting. Maybe you just didn't realize you wanted to include all these pieces. That would be a great one. If you had a matched audience for, however, where you had an exact list of people, a match rate, there's a very key member you're trying to reach, all you have to do is unselect. Speaking of matched audiences, I wanted to kind of share how you would go about and find that. So I'll remove this right now, and we're back to kind of this starting place of narrowing the audience further. So we've been working right now within audience attributes for those 5 buckets of company, demographics, education, job experience, and interests. But we also have matched audiences available. We don't have any current matched audiences in our demo account, but once you upload a list under Account Assets, you will find that list name here along with a checkbox to select. So all you have to do is check all the ones that are fitting, whether it's multiple lists, if it's your retargeting audience, that will all be selected here. And once that is checked, just a reminder, you can narrow audience further and make sure that you're reaching the right type of people. So if you had that contact list that was a little bit too small and you're targeting accounts instead, now you can make sure that you're reaching the decision makers by adding seniority or adding the type of function. Perfect. So I think that's a really great overview of everything that our targeting and specific can go over and the capabilities and where you can find it. As one final review, as we exit out of this test campaign, is that you can upload your account assets, match audiences. You can put in your list here and find your retargeting audiences, account list, and contact list available. Great.
Thank you so much, Julia, for that targeting demo.
Sure.
And with that, we're going to switch over to Amanda to talk a little bit more about optimizing and some tips and tricks that you can use for your targeting strategy.
I think this is just the last couple of slides to review. And we'll send this deck out as well, everyone. So if you're not able to read through all the slides, we'll make sure we send it out to you. Before we dive into tips to optimize strategy, I did actually take a look at a product update. So for lookalike audiences, now you are able to use website retargeting. So you can create a lookalike audiences off of an account list, a contact list, and now you can do it from a website retargeting list as well. So I just wanted to correct that earlier, since I said that answer was no. So yeah, we're new functionalities every day, new capabilities. So yeah, that's the update on that. So let's talk through the tips to optimize strategy. So again, always starting broad is a great idea. You don't want to start with too niche of an audience. The higher you start, the more you have an opportunity to layer. And just make sure that you're layering on different things that are informed, whether it's by an ideal member profile that you and your team have looked at, or if you have like a very specific idea of who's going to make up a qualified lead for your company or your business. Again, your campaign should mimic the funnel. So just think the top of the funnel when they're first finding out about your brand, all the way into that process or that stage where they're ready to buy, make a purchase, or make a decision. Make sure to differentiate your cost per click or cost per impression bids, or cost per view for those of you who are doing video. The great thing about our tool, like Julia showed you, is that it will make a bid suggestion based on who you're targeting. So just make sure it's not going to be one blanket type of bid or one bid amount for each audience as we're testing. So just keep that in mind. And exclusions are powerful. Don't hesitate to use them. Again, to kind of recap a few things we said earlier, to narrow down your audience, 50,000 is our recommended minimum. Starting broad and then narrowing down based on performance and that demographic data is always a great idea. And then you want to use not just the demographic reporting, but you can also use the website demographics as well. And then A/B test your targeting. I know a lot of times we talk about content and A/B testing and how that's valuable, but A/B testing your targeting is also a great idea. So when you test two campaigns that are similar, it's a really great way to find out what is going to work best. So like in this example, we have an audience that's 87,000 members and then an audience that's 230,000 members. With similar targeting, on the left side, you see we're using different industries and different job functions. And then on the right-hand side, we're using different industries with seniority. So you realize some of them are going to create more scale, but running them two simultaneously will find out where you get the best results. So don't hesitate. You don't have to pick one. Running multiple at a time is always a good idea. For targeting criteria, it's great to see what's going to work best. So in this example, let's say we're trying to reach IT or information technology decision makers. We could test this 4 different ways. So for example, we can use skills that focus on IT, years of experience as a combination. We can use job title targeting, which can be very specific. We can use function, and we can exclude like entry level or unpaid. And we can target by seniority. And then we can also do a list of contacts, not forget that matched audience portion. So this is just an example of like how you can reach similar people in 4 different ways to find out what's going to be most effective. The other thing you want to make sure that you A/B test is your messaging. So in this example, let's say that there's a B2B marketing company. They've launched a new research study, and they want marketers to download it. So if you think about testing out 3 different targets, how you can kind of tailor that messaging. So for example, if we're targeting chief marketing officers, you might use messaging like, these insights can help you drive transformation to your business, still leading them to the same asset. If you're targeting marketing director specifically, you might use that question and answer method. Do you need to demonstrate more ROI for your company? These insights can help. And then last but not least, if you want to go the extra mile to actually call people out in their profession specifically, if we're targeting like social media managers, you can actually put that in your ad copy. Hey, social media managers, get the insights that's going to drive the engagement that you need. Again, put yourself in your customer's shoes. I know if I see anything related to like account or client solutions manager on LinkedIn, I'm way more likely to click on it and engage with it rather than something that's maybe a little bit more broader general. Again, campaign demographics. For those of you who are not as familiar with the campaign manager tool, this is what it looks like. You can access it right from your account dashboard. Again, it helps you optimize who you're targeting, who you're reaching. It helps you get an idea of who's engaging with this content. And And it also kind of helps us understand, do we need to include more people, or is there anyone that we need to exclude as well? It gives you detailed insights. The really cool thing about campaign demographics is that you can break it down by job function, you can break it down by company, you can break it down by company size, seniority, and you can also download this data from your campaign manager tool, and it comes out in a CSV file if you want to like share it with your teams internally or look at the data a little bit more closely. It also provides impressions. You can also look at click data, and if you are tracking conversions, our demographics tool actually now provides conversion data as well. So earlier I mentioned website demographics, which is comes with using our Insights tag. It's a free tool that will allow you to see a breakdown of where your website traffic, what demographic information that your website traffic is made up of. And the thing to keep in mind is that this is not just isolated to people that have actually clicked through to your paid content. This is people that could be visiting your website organically. If they have a LinkedIn profile, we are able to track that information as well. So for example, if you want to compare what your audience looked like on a company page, product, or on your contact us page to kind of compare and see, is there consistency? You can actually line those demographics up in the campaign manager account, so it makes it really easy to hone in. You can also see if there's been an increase or a decrease in traffic for any of those different demographics. And it's pretty similar. You can look at job function, company size, location, things like that. Can be very, very valuable. And then earlier I mentioned taking like an ideal client's profile to reverse engineer your audience. So it's also, I would say, between 1 and 5 like ideal profiles to share with your sales team and your marketing team to identify like what skills, job functions, different groups they're engaged with. It just creates more opportunity for you to reach the ideal people in multiple different ways. One thing that you guys probably saw during the demo is that you can actually save your audience as a template for other campaigns. So if you have sort of like a baseline, whether it's like company size and location and different seniority levels that you know that you want to apply to all your targets, when you build an audience, you can click the option to save as an audience template. And then what you can do is you can apply that to any other campaign that you create in the future. Just saves time. And I use it a lot, so I definitely encourage you guys to save those templates. And if you ever need to make a change to a template, you can click the option to update your existing template as well. So these are the targeting best practices. Again, we'll send these out. I know there's a lot of bullets here. Make sure you have your audience and buyer personas well defined. Starting off broad with your audience is always a great idea. 50,000 is the recommended minimum. 100 and 300,000 would be even better, but if you want to start as a baseline, 50,000 is going to be your minimum. Audience expansion is great to improve reach, specifically for those campaigns that are more awareness or discovery based. Don't be afraid to experiment and A/B test audiences and content alike. The seniority facet is can be more effective than the years of experience or age targeting, so keep that in mind as well. Segmenting by region, if your targets are global, it's always a great idea to make sure that you're not stretching that budget too thin and using up all your impressions and clicks on one specific region. And then remember, now you can use and targeting. You can also use or targeting, which is a newer functionality, so keep that in mind as well. And now I'm going to pass it on to to Maisha to cover the product roadmap.
So now the part that you guys have all been waiting for, our product roadmap. In the first half of 2020, we are coming out with some really great enhancements to our targeting tools. So the first one that's actually coming next month is geo-targeting. With this, we have actually integrated with Bing data, and we're providing over 2 million different locations in addition, so that way we give our advertisers a lot more capabilities to hone in on specific cities and regions that they need to. So we're really excited about that. So that is coming mid-December. Be on the lookout for that. Another thing is match rate improvements. So we're actually expanding different contact IDs that you'll be able to use for match audiences. So we'll include the capability to have mobile IDs, Google IDs, first name, last name, company name, and so we're really expanding our templates there. So that's going to be actually coming out in January. From there, we have persona targeting. So this is the ability to target based on inferred characteristics or categories and actions that folks have taken within LinkedIn and on other sites. We also have engagement retargeting. We had a question about this come through. Is there the capability to retarget based on video ads? And the answer to that question is yes, that is coming in the first half of 2020, where you'll be able to retarget based on video ad views and other sponsored content ads that you have available. And then the last thing we have coming up in the first half of 2020 is audience insights. So during the demo, you might have saw on the right-hand panel, we had a little bit of insights where you could click into there to see functionality and really see a good breakdown of that potential target audience. We're going to be building out that functionality a little bit more for you guys to have more insights even before you launch your campaigns to make sure you're targeting the right folks. So be on the lookout for the first half of 2020 for all these enhancements, and we're really excited about this. So with that, we are going to get into our, before we get to curriculum offerings, actually, let's talk about curriculum offerings. We do these monthly labs monthly, so we have quite a few coming up. So make sure to check out our website for the next marketing labs. And similar to what we did today, we do a deep dive of specific topics that we have available on our marketing solutions. So continue to check out our website and sign up for those as they come up. Now with that, we're topping into our final Q&A. Now on your screen, you should be able to have take our survey. So make sure you click on that and please fill out our survey so that we can make improvements for our content here and go into that. And in the meantime, I'm going to hop into some questions that we had come through throughout the presentation. So one question that came is, we typically showed dramatically different numbers from what LinkedIn marks as clicks versus what we track as traffic, so website traffic. Why the discrepancy?
So I can take that one if it helps. I think one of the more exciting things with LinkedIn that has been happening in the last quarter is we've recently rolled out new objectives. So what this means is that we have new updated objectives from everything from brand awareness now to website conversions, and that's changed the way that we have billable clicks. So one, I would suggest if you are doing website traffic as your objective, make sure it's the new updated version. You'll be able to see that if there's a legacy tag on your campaign or not. If there is, that means it's using the past objectives, which did include some billable clicks that went to your company page as well as your landing page. With the new website traffic objective, it will only count for landing page traffic, so that should match up a little bit better. If you are currently using that one too, there may be something to look into on the, if there's any sort of drop off from when they click it to when they actually hit your site and the conversion or insight tag fires.
Thank you, Julia.
Another thing to keep in mind is that if you're using any like third-party tracking, it is normal to have, I think it's about like a 10 to 15% discrepancy. So if the numbers don't match up 100%, it's still normal. Like if you're using like a Google Analytics or something like that. So just wanted to call that out as well.
Definitely.
Thank you both. All right, the next question said, you said that we are GDPR compliant. Can you dive into this a little bit more? For example, if I upload a contact and you find that it is not compliant, do you delete it? How do you let us know?
That's a great question. So I actually would encourage you guys, if you guys go into our LinkedIn Marketing Solutions Help Center and just type in GDPR, we have all the different details about the compliance, any questions. There's an FAQ that will give you a lot more detailed information, probably more than I can give you. So yeah, I would go LinkedIn Marketing Solutions Help Center, Google GDPR compliance. You can also look it up if you search for matched audiences and click on contact targeting or account targeting, whichever one you're using, and that will give you information as well.
Okay. So another question that came through, can you do both lookalike audiences and audience expansion? How accurate is that, and would you recommend it?
So I believe you can do both.
Yes, you can definitely do both. Either way, you're going to be reaching net new members. So it's going to be kind of from that prospecting perspective of if you're doing a lookalike audience, it's based off an audience you provided. So they are all going to be net new. And audience expansion, I think, would just kind of add to that a bit. So really just feel free to do that. It's usually a good fit with lookalike if you wanted to. Make sure you just have any sort of kind of functions on top of it and kind of mold that audience a bit with our own demographics so that you're reaching the right type of people.
So I think we touched on this earlier, but the next question is there a way you can access your saved audiences and modify them without having to start a campaign to access these?
Yeah, great question. I can take that one. So you can update an existing audience without having to create a new campaign. I always say it's nice to keep like a little demo campaign in your account for purposes like that. So if you need to make updates, but you don't want to change like an existing campaign that you have running, creating a campaign, you can even leave it in like draft mode. You don't even have to launch it. It's probably the best way to do that. If you kind of just need, sometimes I will call it like a sandbox campaign or sandbox account, just particularly for those purposes. And those, wherever you apply them, the updates will set in.
All right, we have time for a few more questions. So the next one is why, within demographic reporting, why do they not show all clicks that were generated, especially in lead gen campaigns?
Sure, so I can take that. I know we've used the term members first policy a lot, and that is another one that it kind of falls into. If we were to show every single click, especially with lead gen form campaigns, you'd be able to know a lot of information that maybe wasn't included in your lead gen form on one individual, which is just not something that we want to kind of dive into from a privacy policy. So there are minimum number of clicks required to kind of get those demographic information. So if you're not getting enough to kind of have a better understanding of titles, looking at your click demographic for function, that's usually will give you a little bit more information. So kind of take that, kind of two-prong approach of looking at the niche and seeing what's available, also looking at the broader picture will kind of give you that solution until you have enough data to get all of those insights.
Perfect. And the last question we're going to take today, are there any best practices for getting conversions from your targeted audiences? So what last tips do we have for all the advertisers?
We could probably do another hour.
Yeah. All right, maybe top two
for each of us.
Yeah,
sure.
For each.
I would say for my experience, one, not being afraid to call your audience out directly and tailor the content to those specific audiences, whether it's by function, title, or like an industry that they work in, and then I would say my second recommendation is make sure that you plan out and have a good idea of your buyer personas before you even start spending money on advertising so that you have a strong understanding of what that looks like for your company. Those would be my top two.
So I'm kind of in line with what Amanda was saying. My top one would be, I think the largest mistake people make on LinkedIn is they get really transactional. And really you have to be all about the individual. Why are they converting? So we had a best practice slide to take a look at that, but asking questions and then being the solution, that's going to be kind of that best area, or providing a problem and being that solution will be the best kind of way to get conversions rather than speaking as your company first. What are we doing? Think about what do they need. So that's kind of the number one way. The second is also to just optimize while you go forward. Take a look at those click demographics and see who's engaging the most. It may be time to exclude a few members who are not, maybe taking up a lot of impressions, but aren't necessarily engaging the same way others do. So I would say that's a really kind of use targeting to your advantage, test a few audiences, and use demographics to optimize.
Perfect. So with that, that's all the time we have for our Q&A. Thank you so much for your participation throughout this webinar and for sticking with us. It has been wonderful. I want to say thank you to our presenters, Amanda and Julia, for their expertise today. And again, if you didn't have time to fill out the survey in the follow-up email, the link will be there. So please take a moment to fill that out for us and allow us to optimize that program. And with that, thank you so much. We hopefully got some really great tips on targeting on the LinkedIn marketing solution. And we look forward to the next one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.